got that win last week on the road against Arizona. In my eyes, you're looking at a team that is playing well. They're consistently moving the ball down the field, and they're doing so at will. And then that front seven is just as nasty as it ever has been from the Philadelphia side of things.
I've got the go-ahead from the producers here to skip our commercial break and go right into our next guest. So we're going to welcome on Kyle Youmans from the DallasCowboys.com. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad we got a chance to catch up this week. It's a big-time affair on the docket for Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you look at the matchups through the years for Philly and Dallas, and this one's right up there with it in terms of the anticipation and even just the pure intrigue around some of the individual matchups that are going to take place. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us. Of course, Kyle Youmans, DallasCowboys.com, the draft show, one of our favorites. Listen, the Cowboys beat the world champion Rams. We saw that last week. And I think these are the two best teams in the NFC, locking horns, even with Cooper Rush, who's doing Kurt Warner-esque type of things. He hasn't lost as a starter. It's been unbelievable. But here we are. Dallas Cowboys 4-1 at the Philadelphia Eagles 5-0. Kyle, it's been interesting, though, because the Eagles opened up as a 1-point favorite. And here we are now on Football Friday. It's now up to 6.5. Are you a little bit surprised at how much the money's been coming in on the Eagles?
You know, honestly, I'm not, because a lot of teams around the league have been so unpredictable. And Philadelphia specifically has been the one constant. That's been the one go-to. I mean, even the Bills have a loss, and they're supposed to be this highly vaulted ball club in their own right. The Eagles have looked so consistent throughout their first 5 games of the year. And now a lot of people may knock the schedule, and they may say, hey, 4 of those 5 games were against teams with losing records in 2021. You got that win last week on the road against Arizona. In my eyes, you're looking at a team that is playing well. They're consistently moving the ball down the field, and they're doing so at will. And then that front seven is just as nasty as it ever has been from the Philadelphia side of things. So I'm not surprised that the money is moved in favor of Philadelphia. The one shocking thing to it is that, I mean, the Dallas defense has been just as consistent. I mean, if you really had to knock the Cowboys, it would be on the offensive side of the football. But the defense continues to show that they are an elite level defense, and that's what's going to really be the key factor. Can they continue to win you football games? Because they've done so to this point in the year.
Yeah, listen, you mentioned the Eagles front seven. This Dallas Cowboys pass rush has been a hot topic all week long here on the Football Playbook, because never mind Micah Parsons, we know what he can do, but Dorrance Armstrong has got a career high 4 sacks through the first couple weeks. Dante Fowler's his backup, by the way. DeMarcus Lawrence, I saw what he did last week with the fumble recovery for a touchdown, and he's been a high performer. And then Sam Williams is a guy that he's got 4.4 speed as a defensive end. I mean, you bundle all these guys along with the Micah Parsons, 20 pressures, I think, last week on Matthew Stafford, 5 sacks. Yeah. Unbelievable what this Cowboys pass rush is bringing to the table. And I would say this is cream of the crop versus cream of the crop, because Eagles, they are banged up on the offensive line. We don't know the status of Jordan Mailata and Andre Dillard. They've been banged up on the offensive line, but still, this is strength against strength. Parsons, by the way, what can you tell us? Because I know he's got this groin tightness, but he said there's no question he's going to be ready to go Sunday night. Is that a small factor, big factor, somewhere in between factor?
Well, I think it's a massive factor if he's able to go, but he's going to go. I mean, he's as ready as anybody. He's as competitive as anybody as they come. And you look at really what he could bring from a versatility standpoint to try and slow down Jalen Hurts. This defense needs Micah Parsons to set the tone, because, like you said, Dorrance Armstrong and DeMarcus Lawrence have had great starts to the year. Both of those guys are playing some of the best football of their careers to start. But you really look at Micah Parsons as that tone setter. He's the one that can play up at the line of scrimmage. He can play back. You can play linebacker. And then you have him coming off the edge and having that versatility maybe to try and keep Philly off balance, especially, like you said, with an offensive line that's a little banged up at the moment. He's going to play and he has really left it up to no speculation. He's not throwing out the gamemanship of like, oh, maybe or not, maybe I won't play, maybe I will play. No, he's come out and said, I'm going to be there on Sunday Night Football in Philadelphia, because these are the types of games where legends are made, and Micah Parsons certainly wants to be a legend.
Oh, he's no doubt building a legendary resume early on in his young career there for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I got my depth chart here, man.
Mm-hmm.
And Trevin Diggs is obviously a storyline, but man, these safeties with Hooker, Jalen Hurts, I see Donovan Wilson leads the team in tackles. I like this kid Marquise Bell out of Florida A&M. So for all the pass rush that's doing well, this secondary, especially with the safeties, are making plays all over the field as well.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, who last year really had kind of that emergence at the safety position, a spot where the Cowboys have never really had an embarrassment of riches. They've just only had maybe one, possibly two pieces, but for the most part, they've really struggled at the safety spot over the last decade and a half, or really since Darren Woodson called it quits in the early 2000s. So the Cowboys really have welcomed in Jalen Hurts, and he then gets hurt in the season opener against Tampa Bay, and you're like, my goodness, here we go again. You do have Malik Hooker. You signed to a one-year deal last year. They liked what they saw here. He's really kind of that over-the-top free safety that's going to be the umbrella to a defense that's led by Dan Quinn. And then you've got Donovan Wilson, who filled in for Jalen Hurts and kind of put on an enforcer role. I mean, he was a hammerhead, just coming down and laying the head on these guys, putting the hat on hat and making a ton of contact. Is part of the reason why he was top 10 in tackles in the NFL last week. And he continues to really play well. Even now that Hurts is back into the fold, Dan Quinn has three safeties that he feels really comfortable with, of rotating those guys in and out, and also not allowing for any one of them to be overworked at the second level for that Cowboys defense. So really excited about what the safeties bring to the table. And this is a game where I really think they're going to get tested against that pretty stout wide receiving core for Philadelphia.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're talking to Kyle Youmans, DallasCowboys.com, of course, the draft show. So happy to have him here, breaking it down for Cowboys week. Eagles, Cowboys, Lincoln Financial Field, this Sunday night primetime affair. One last one on the defense. And guys like Anthony Barr and Dante Fowler have brought a veteran presence, but they've also added some pieces on the interior here over the last couple of years. This Osa Adigazawa from UCLA. Yep. I like Neville Gallimore. I think he was banged up last year out of Oklahoma. Is kind of in the rotation there. And I hear that the Cowboys will run a lot of stunts, a lot of twists with their interior, inside out, and move these guys around. Quentin Bohanna, another big body kind of guy taking up space on the interior. What can you tell us about the interior defensive line, Kyle?
Yeah, well, I really look at, you mentioned it with Osa Odighizuwa and Neville Gallimore. Those are kind of the two go-to guys on the interior. They both play pretty much a three technique. Sometimes they'll move to the one. But even though it's a traditional 4-3 front for this Cowboys defense, it never looks traditional. Sometimes they're going to have 4 or 5 edge rushers in there at the same time. Then they'll throw in a heavy package where it will be Bohanna. Then they'll throw in a Gallimore and a Hill at the line of scrimmage as well, and allow them to kind of take up space, eat up those gaps, and then work to the backfield. So it's a different front every single time. I would like to say, I mean, Quentin Bohanna is having a fantastic season. He was a 6th-round pick a year ago out of Kentucky, came into the league weighing 360. He was just a big body. We used to call him, when he was drafted, we called him a trash can full of dirt. He's there to take up space. You're just going to plant him down, and he's not going to move. He's done more than that. He's now moving and taking on double teams. He's moving and taking multiple gaps and allowing for Dorrance Armstrongs and the Dante Fowler Jr.'s to show their speed off the edge, set the edge, and then the pocket collapses. That's why they've had 20 sacks to this point in the season, and they've taken down Stafford and Burrow and Daniel Jones as some of those guys that they've faced so far. It really has been impressive the way that this defense has gone to work. And it's not just the big star power, it's the depth that they've shown. And if they're going to win against Philadelphia, they're going to need that depth to shine.
Yeah, and I will say that 360 pounds for Quentin Bohanna, that might be a generous listing there. He's a big boy.
It is now. It definitely is now. He's probably playing more like 330, maybe a little under 330 at this point.
No, he's looking good there in the middle of the defense. Let's switch it up on offense, though. We've talked at length about the wide receivers on this show throughout the week, but I saw Dalton Schultz was on the injury report this week. Is he good to go? Is he 50-50? What's the status with Dalton Schultz? And how much of an impact does the tight end have on this offense with the Cooper Rush?
It has a significant impact. You look at really even before Cooper Rush was forced to come into the backup role, Dalton Schultz was the safety blanket for Dak Prescott, and he still is to a certain extent with Rush at quarterback. So if he's not able to go, which I think he will be, he's been in practice, he's been limited. They've taken the brace off, and when we were talking to Mike McCarthy earlier, he said that it did help out having no brace on there for Dalton Schultz. So if he's available, I would expect it to be in a limited fashion. You may have a pitch count on him. He may not see the full workload of snaps, but they've got two guys that are young rookies that they feel really good about. Jake Ferguson, who's a fourth-round pick out of Wisconsin, a Senior Bowl standout, a guy who was a well-rounded tight end. He can block, he can receive, but really he's come in. He's been a physical force in terms of the pass protection for Cooper Rush and a lot of these max protect packages that you've seen for the Cowboys. And then another guy that's really come out of nowhere was Peyton Hendershot. He's a rookie that they picked up as an undrafted free agent, and he's got some vertical to his game. He's a little bit smaller than Ferguson from a size standpoint, but from a height standpoint, he's right up there. And he can stretch the field. He's got a vertical threat as well. I really like what Hendershot brings to the table, and they may try and draw some things up for him.
He's like a power forward out there. And
yeah, it really does look like that.
Yeah, we had him out of the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, and he was making all these splash plays. And I think the Cowboys were on a primetime game earlier this year, and Hendershot was making plays all over the field. So I do think he could be somewhat of an X factor on the offense for the Cowboys. Now, I've been talking about the running back duo of Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. It seems like Pollard is the more explosive runner. Zeke is kind of that in between the tackles guy. How is the timeshare going to be split up in this matchup, Kyle? Is it kind of a 50-50 timeshare at this point?
You know, the yardage might tell you that, but really the carries still go to Ezekiel Elliott. And a lot of fans out there, especially for Cowboys Nation, they continue to say, give Tony Pollard the rock. Now, he's the owner of the 4 longest plays of the season for the Cowboys from scrimmage. He has been phenomenal. But really, it's been a 1-2 punch for a reason. Ezekiel Elliott wears down a defense. He'll go pound for pound, show the physicality. He'll run in between the tackles. He'll throw right through he'll run right through the heart of a defense and wear them down over time. In a matchup like this, I think that's where Ezekiel Elliott could really shine and where he could put up some yardage and maybe break a couple of big runs, because it's really tough to do that on a consistent basis. Tony Pollard's been that fastball to Ezekiel Elliott's changeup. When you've got a great changeup, you're going to throw it. You're going to make sure it wears down a hitter because they've got to wait on it and wait on it and wait on it. But then you're going to turn around, you're going to throw this fastball, and it's going to go right by you. That's what Tony Pollard has been as the big chunk play guy, whereas Ezekiel Elliott maybe gets twice as many carries, but he's able to wear down a defense. It's a 1-2 punch that's worked well for the Cowboys, and I don't see them changing that up anytime soon.
That's as good of a 1-2 punch in the backfield by committee that I've seen around the National Football League. It's a pretty good one. I think the Eagles will have their hands full trying to stop that. Now, Kyle, I am going to get a prediction out of you before we let you go. However, I want to tell our listening audience at home, because the Eagles brethren love to get as much knowledge and information as they can from the opponents, and they go to DallasCowboys.com. I think you are the pre- and post-game host as well. Yeah. So yes, tell the listening audience at home where to find all your great content, what's going to be up there this weekend, what you have coming out, and some of the things that you're doing over at DallasCowboys.com.
Yeah, we do as good of a job, I think, as anybody as putting out a ton of content. I mean, there's so much that you can choose from. We've got so many different shows on DallasCowboys.com, but I am the pre- and post-game host, so we do breakdowns, and we do neutral breakdowns. Sure, it's probably 60-40 Cowboys, but we talk a lot of our opponents, and we think very highly of the team on the other side of the line of scrimmage. So we talk a lot about opposing teams even on those shows. So if you want to try something else other than maybe the network television pregame show, come on over, DallasCowboys.com. We get started at 6 p.m. Central Time coming up on Sunday night. So it's a lot of fun. We've got 3 former Cowboys on that show with Nate Newton, Barry Church, and Isaiah Stanback, and I get to kind of quarterback things and kind of put us in the right situation there. We do tons of previews. You can catch us all over the website and then on the YouTube pages for the Cowboys, Twitter page and Facebook as well. Lots of content, and looking forward to this matchup. This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, the svelte Nate Newton, I should say. He's looking skinny these days.
Yeah, he is.
All right, quickly, a prediction here before we let you boogie, Kyle.
Okay, so hear me out. I think this is going to be a fantastic ball game, but it's going to be ugly because that's every game that the Cowboys have played in so far, and Philly knows that too. They've won some ugly games at the same point this year as well. But I think the Cowboys get the win on the road only because the defense is as good as anybody in the league right now. I feel like you look at Philadelphia, they've faced 4 teams that are under 500. They got the win over Arizona, but they haven't played a defense that's as stout as the Cowboys are. Especially whenever it comes to slowing down the passing game and slowing down wide receivers on the edge. They really haven't had a whole lot of success. Cooper Kupp had his fill last week. Jamar Chase had his fill a couple weeks ago. I'm sure A.J. Brown will have that as well. But I think the Cowboys get an ugly, ugly win. 22-17 is my final score prediction on Sunday night. But it's going to be a fun one.
All right, a slobber knocker, as we like to call him. Kyle Youmans, DallasCowboys.com. We appreciate the time. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.